Welcome to 1407 Great Malkin Lane, the living memory of the X-Men. Don't let anyone tell you different. Today, I am here interviewing. I'll let you introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, what's up? I go by CaptainComicRecs on TikTok if you're following me out there, but my real name is Brian. So, hey, how's it going?
Brian, nice to meet you. I'm Derek. It's nice that X-Men brings people together. That's what it's
Truly, yeah.
supposed to do.
I always feel like when I meet people from TikTok, it's like I'm meeting a pen pal in real life for the first time.
Right?
You know? It's like we've only communicated via these like video messages, and now we're actually getting to interact for the first time.
Oh man, I've been following you for a while. It's like I like your you and your wife talking about the Hellfire Gala clothes. It was really fun.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. This is, I like
Thank
this
you,
guy.
man. Thank you so much.
I like this guy.
Thank you. All credit to her. She is hilarious, so it makes those videos 10 times better.
It's like, oh man, I have to say, Spider-Man and Doom probably had the best
Oh yeah.
outfits. Like,
Yeah, I think Doom was her favorite this year, hands
right?
down. It was like last year he went and then he was like, I'm not playing around this year. I'm showing everybody up when I get there.
like yeah, it's weird. Like last year I was calling him like a nerd. Just like he was just hating on everybody because he was hating on the mutants because they were doing something he can't and he wasn't invited. Now he's like, I'll show them.
Doom is the biggest hater in the Marvel universe.
Oh,
I mean, that's kind of his default setting.
He is so hateful. It's weird. It's so weird how much of a hater he is. He just weird.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually in the middle of reading. I'm reading Doom War for the first time. The arc where Doom tries to take over Wakanda, and you have this moment where you're like, he always hates Reed Richards the most, but he just truly hates the entire Marvel universe.
Yeah,
he's an equal opportunity hater.
Yeah, right. But I think he really kind of hates Krakoa because like they're doing.
Oh, sure.
He's impressed with what they're doing, but like he's not invited. That's what really hurts his feelings.
Oh yeah.
Like
there's a pettiness to his hatred.
Yes.
Which I think is what makes him such a compelling character, is that he's so good at so many things, but it's all deeply rooted in insecurities. It's just a guy who is just mad that he isn't as good as he wants to be, or is worried that people aren't seeing him as the best that he truly is, and that drives everything he does.
He's like, you like Reed Richards? That phony? Come on! He doesn't even do magic.
Yeah, he goes as far as to be like, I'm going to master an entirely separate science, quote unquote, just to prove myself superior to Reed Richards.
And then he gave birth to Reed's second child. Now he has
becoming her godfather. Great, amazing.
I did something you can't. Like, be there for your family. What?
The ultimate hater, truly.
I had this weird theory with Doom, thinking that maybe he was actually like the second, he was Reed, like a I don't know, like a schizophrenic, like an alternate personality of Reed.
Oh, like it's like a Tyler Durden Fight Club kind of situation. That would be crazy. That would make an interesting like what if story, or an interesting alternate universe story where he's like two sides of the same person.
But then if everybody found out about them, be like, somebody would have called it. All right, but let's get to the why we're here. Like X-Men.
Yes.
So, what was your first exposure to the X-Men? Like, what got you into it? What made you like, yes?
Wow. Yeah.
So this is the person I would marry this.
I think it was kind of a combination of three things. So I'm 33. So I really got into comics in the early 2000s.
Right.
So that means my like sort of real exposure to the X-Men is a mix of the 90s cartoon.
Hmm.
Obviously, I think most people my age, it's like you went to Pizza Hut, you got the VHS and the 90s X-Men
Yeah.
number
Oh
one,
yeah.
like that was your thing.
Oh yeah.
But then it
Definitely.
was also the first of the X-Men movies,
Right.
and then X-Men Evolution,
Right.
the X-Men Evolution cartoon. Like those three things are like my trifecta of like when I think X-Men, the early days of X-Men, to me, it's those three components in various combinations.
Nice. So, what was your
Yeah.
first X-Men comic book?
So my first X-Men comic book, again, like most people my age, the first one I ever got was like I probably just picked it up out of the blue somewhere, maybe at like a Walmart or something. But it was I one of the earliest things I remember having was the Jim Lee X-Men, Chris Claremont X-Men number one.
Right.
Of the four covers that interlock with
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. Mutant Genesis. Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, exactly. And then I had I feel like I don't even know where I got this from, but I had this weird three-part like team up book that was Spider-Man and the Peter David X Factor.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
Spider-Man, like, and I had, and it was funny because like I know like who the main mutants are, so I know like I know Rogue and Gambit and Wolverine, like I know them, and then I'm like, who's like Strong Guy and Multiple
Right.
Man? Like I'm getting exposed to all these weird characters
Wolfsbane.
that never, yeah, that would never pop up in the
That's a
movies
magic
or shows
potion.
forever. Exactly. So I had all these very interesting sort of experiences, but the first X-Men comic book that I really bought regularly was Ultimate X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
because
really good. That was
yeah, because
really good.
I was really more of a DC kid growing up. Because
Right.
my uncle, who was a big comic book guy, he was just a DC guy. Like
Right.
he has the full original run of Justice League of America going back to that first issue. It's crazy.
Nice.
But so I was always more of a DC kid. So it was hard for me to get into Marvel because I was just like, I don't even know where to start. And then they did Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men. And I was like,
Right.
okay, perfect. Like these are clean spots I could just sort of jump in and not have to worry about decades of continuity that I'm just clueless about. So yeah, it was those two things. And reading Ultimate X-Men, I eventually got to a point where I was like, all right, I love Grant Morrison, so I'll read New X-Men, or I like Jason Aaron, so I'll try Wolverine in the X-Men. And it's actually really only just now that I'm finally going back and reading the Claremont stuff.
Right.
Like I had read bits and pieces here and there. Like I had read Dark Phoenix and I had read Days of Future Past, but now I'm really buckling in and saying, all right, I'm going to read all of it. God bless Marvel Unlimited, because that's a big help in making that happen. But yeah, so those are all the general exposures that I've had to X-Men over time.
Yeah, I remember when Ultimate X-Men and also Spider-Man started. Like, I didn't read the first arc, but that second arc with the Weapon X, I was like,
Yeah,
wow,
that
this
was
is a
crazy.
movie. This is this is a whole movie. Like there were
Yeah,
a lot of people like to like trash it. Like nowadays, like, oh, Ultimatum was like this, and oh, it was weird what they did with Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, making them like and brother and sister, but they're sleeping together. Like, yeah, but
right.
there was a time where Ultimates were the best. Like every month is
Yeah,
like,
it
wow.
falls off pretty hard. But
But
it's funny because I never read the Ultimates for
yeah,
whatever reason. I just didn't read that one as a kid. It
right,
just for whatever reason I wasn't into it. And I think again the movies had a big influence on me because I loved the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
yeah.
Unsurprisingly, I was a middle school kid when those came out. They were like my Bible.
Hey, hey, I was in
So
high
those
school.
were
I
the
was right there
two.
with you.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the two I was really drawn to because it was like I know these movies, so I'm gonna check this out because I know these characters. And
Right.
I stand that like I mean, I think Ultimate Spider-Man still holds up very, very well and people still praise it.
Oh,
But I think even Ultimate X-Men has some good stuff in it. Like I still think about the scene where Magneto like rips out the dude's pacemaker
yeah,
at one point in one of the first story arcs and like be like, holy crap, that's crazy. I never even thought about that being a thing he could use his powers for. Because I'm used to watching, the cartoon show where he's just like making, missiles fly
right,
around and stuff. But to do something that precise and brutal
right.
to someone was shocking to me.
Magneto was petty in Ultimate X-Men. Like,
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
when like after he got his memory back from that New Brotherhood. He killed the person who got the original idea, and then he had that huge that thing in the sky that said, "Hello, hello, Charles." Like,
so good, so good. Yeah, I should go back and reread that because that had that good
fun.
like Adam Hubert art too.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Return to Weapon X is really good. Proteus is really good.
Yeah.
The way they did the Phoenix Saga, like everyone was like 5 issues. It gave you a full account of everything. Like it was clean. There was no filler. Even the 2-part Gambit stuff was good. Like
that was a great story when he just blows up Hammerhead's head.
Yeah.
So cool. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a comic where Hammerhead and Gambit would face off, but it's kind of the perfect person to fight Hammerhead in some ways, because like, oh, he has a skull made out of a thing he could just charge up and explode. Perfect. He's gonna take it that easy.
It's like,
yeah. But yeah, that's a really great one. And what was cool was, and I wish they would bring this back, but I understand that like logistically and financially, I know it doesn't make any sense. But what was amazing about Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men is, I didn't really have a comic shop nearby that sold new comics. I had one comic shop that was like a short bike ride from my house, but it only sold like tons and tons of back issues, which was cool because for someone who wants to learn how to get into comics, it's just like, I'm literally going to dive through this box, pull out whatever looks interesting to me and buy it and read it. I won't have any idea what's going on, but I'm learning all these weird characters and I'm learning about the different parts of the universe.
Absolutely.
But there was no store that sold new books. But when they were first doing Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, they had the first like maybe 10 or so issues just on Marvel's website for free.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I don't know I don't know like how they got away with that financially. I don't know like what like whose idea that was, but that was such a huge thing that got me into it. And then eventually I found
it was a nice little entry. So instead we just give one where you, like, like you say, you couldn't get any books. They gave you like 2 arcs where you can just like dive in, sink your teeth into it.
Exactly.
Like, man, I swear, comic books like drugs.
They really are. And Marvel Unlimited is great, but having that 3-month delay, I think, keeps people
it hurts it. It kind of
really, yeah. Like I like it because I'm like, okay, there are books that I've been wanting to read that I'm like I can start catching up on. Like I don't really read the current X-Force and Wolverine on a regular basis, so I kind of catch up with it through that. But I read like literally every other X-Men book on a monthly basis. I had to make some choices of which ones am I not going to.
Oh, hey, I'm right. I buy them digitally, so like midnight.
Sure,
I'm just. I wish I could quit Legion of X though. I want to quit because I don't like it. I don't like
Size. Oh, really?
No, I don't like all the pot shots he made at Xavier. He doesn't miss opportunity to make like, hey, I don't like Xavier. Pop like, oh, like.
Well, I think Cy Spurrier has his biases where he's very much team Legion. You know what I mean? Especially after writing X-Men Legacy for as long as he did. I think he's so in the headspace of that character, he finds it hard to be empathetic to.
But he keeps forgetting that he makes his feelings seem like Xavier neglected him. Like, no, that's not what happened. That was Xavier. That was Legion's mom who kept him away. So it's like, oh, she's the one who got pregnant. She's the one who didn't tell Xavier about it. And then Captain, it told Moira too. That's another part. Told Moira, like, don't tell Charles. And then like he only brought Charles in when his powers got out of control. If that kid was human, if David was human, Charles would never know he existed. Ever. And that's and people really forget that. It's like, no, his issues are with his mom.
Yeah, there's other things you could criticize Professor X.
Right, yeah. Like, okay.
I do like a thing that I like about that book though is I like the way that it really interrogates the concept of Krakoa. You know what I mean? Like it's the book that really takes a step back and says, is everything that we've created here like actually ethical? Is this the right way to build a society? Like that was really what they did with oh shoot, what was the previous version of the book called? Way of X.
Way of X, yeah.
Yeah. And that was what I found so compelling about it, was I really liked Nightcrawler's sort of internal journey of saying, how do I create a faith, a religion in a world where death no longer has no meaning? And as someone who, I was raised Catholic, so I found it really interesting to think like, yeah, so much of my own religious beliefs growing up was like, you have to be good because if you don't, you'll die and go to hell.
Go to
And I'm
hell.
like, I don't know if that's the best incentive to like encourage people to be good. Shouldn't you want to be good
Like,
for
do what you
your
say,
own...
there's a reward at the end.
Right, exactly. I'm like, I don't know if that makes it truly, then it's like, are my actions actually good, or am I just like seeking a reward? There's all these
Right.
moral philosophical quandaries you end up in, and I liked how the book explored those ideas. Now, granted, that's not the Legion part. This is the Nightcrawler part.
Right. No, I
think
do
the
like
Nightcrawler stuff.
anything with
Yeah.
Nightcrawler. I love, because like,
Yeah.
but here's something I'm always wondering with Nightcrawler. You would think with his beliefs and his like faith, he would see Exodus and be like, "That's my best buddy."
You know what it is? I think it's one of those things where it's funny you say that, because I didn't really know anything about Exodus going into the Krakoa era, and I've gone back and read a couple of his like early appearances and been like, this is kind of an interesting character. I get the impression that Exodus is like that person you meet who's like too into something. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like, I am a faithful person, but Exodus is like hardcore in a way that I'm not comfortable with. Like Nightcrawler's like very religious, but he's also like a flirtatious guy. He likes his ladies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exodus is like borderline an incel. Nightcrawler's not going to get along with it.
But then when you read Immortal X-Men, you're like,
yes,
oh, I get it now. I think like he totally makes sense. Like he's a knight. He's a knight.
And that is what Kieran Gillen, I think, is so good at. He's really good at making you understand the psychology of these characters.
Right. Like I would say he's Magneto's Cyclops.
Sure.
With the acolytes, like he was the one who kept everything together when Magneto was taken out back in the 90s. He was leading the acolytes in his name. He's like, when he wakes up, everything's gonna be better. Everything's gonna be better when he gets up.
No, that's an interesting comparison. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. He's so committed to Magneto in the way that Scott used to be with Professor X. But I think what's helping him as a character a lot is that now that he's seeing Hope Summers as the sort of messiah, I think that's probably a more positive person for him to follow than like 90s villain Magneto. You know what I mean? I think that's helping to soften his edges a little bit.
Oh, yeah, he's a good guy. Like he's a good guy. I mean, come on, with someone with that cape and he has no ego about it. I'm like, he's okay.
One of my favorite bits is when Mr. Sinister sees him for the first time. He's like, "Is your cape taller than mine? Are you trying to outdo me?"
I would just like this for Exodus, like just a little bit paces, like yes. Like
just a little bit.
It's like my OG is Magneto. I always have to. Like he has a cape, I got a cape. I always got to improve. I can't do. So who is your favorite character? Like who was your favorite character when you got started, and who is your favorite character now?
Wow. Okay, that's such a hard question.
And
it can really vary depending on who's writing the book too. You know what I mean? That's the weird thing about superhero comics is like a character could be your favorite if this person's writing it, and then somebody else starts writing a character and you're like, I hate this character now because they've totally, nosedived their characterization. Like when Grant Morrison's writing the book, like Emma Frost is like one of the best.
She is dope. I mean? She is cool.
Yeah, exactly. But then you have, say, I like Nightcrawler a lot in this modern Age of X stuff because he is the character who's sort of questioning everything, and I find that journey very interesting. But when I would read like Jason Aaron's Wolverine and the X-Men, I loved Quentin Quire.
He was fun.
Such a little shit. Yeah.
I always thought that could have been a cartoon. That would have been a really nice little cartoon.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Like all the like all the like just like kind of like evolution, X-Men Evolution, but like
Sure.
all the kids are all adults, and they're like, these kids are effing crazy.
Like, we weren't ever like this.
Were we ever
uh,
that bad?
yeah. But in this modern era too, I also really love what they've been doing with Kate Pride, with Kitty Pride. I think that's all really great. I love her as the sort of like badass pirate captain of the Marauders. And I
Horsehair
also,
ripoff.
but I also really like, and this is going to be crazy, in this modern Krakoa era, I really like Cyclops. And I never thought I would think that, but there's just something about this sort of confidence he now has, and that he's almost like the Batman of the group, where he's like, I have contingency plans for everything. I know what we have to do in every possible scenario. Like, he has this focus and this drive to him that I've never seen before, because he always was somewhat insecure. But
Yeah,
now that Krakoa has kind of given him a place of peace, he's like, I can just kick back and be who I am, which is the leader of the X-Men.
and
And I love that for him. It's great.
Eddie is like, like he's like, I'm a simple man. I come up with battle tactics and hang out with my family.
Yeah, I always call it, it's like the era of cool dad Cyclops.
He
He's
really
just
is
like
a cool
hanging out on the
dad.
moon in like the family house. Everybody's chill. He's like, yeah, things are
Yeah,
great.
he deals with Vulcan. Has his wife, has his resident homeless person that lives in his house, Wolverine.
It's like a family sitcom,
Right.
in the Summers
Got his
household.
two
It really
kids
is.
who both seem to worship him, or like
Yeah.
got his crazy brother, got his partier brother, and got his dad, and he's like, oh, I get. Well, how come I can't be like the partier, the crazy partier, like that?
I think one of my favorite bits from this, like discussing like him being like the planner and all that, was, I think it's the first issue of Mortal X-Men, when Selene summons like the giant monster, and then it's like the Summers protocols for handling giant monsters, and there's all these things, and there was the one bit that was like, identifying a Sentinel. If you don't know what a Sentinel looks like, you shouldn't be leading the X-Men.
Exactly.
So he's got a sense of humor now in a way that he
Yeah,
never did
he's
before.
snarky. He's very
Yeah,
snarky. Like,
yeah.
no,
I would love for them to bring some of that into whenever they do, MCU X-Men. I hope they bring some of that energy a little bit, because I get that it's like a growth of character for him to be at this point, but you need some of that. Otherwise, people are just going to think he's a wet blanket from the
no,
jump.
see, like I like this. Like I love Cyclops from the Grant Morrison era. It made really
Yeah, totally.
re-examine him. I'm like, whoa, he is the man of action. He is Bond. He's the Bond of the
Definitely.
X-Men. Like
Definitely.
I liked him even more than Emma, because he like everybody say, oh, he cheated on Jean with Emma. Like, well, all right, calm down.
It's a complicated situation.
That's a totally complicated. Like, you're gonna get on somebody for having a bad thought. That's not cool. That's
I
not
also think
cool.
that in the world of X-Men, if you're gonna get mad at people for cheating on someone, you're not gonna be able to like anybody. Everybody
Right.
cheats on everybody in X-Men. It's just a giant soap opera. You gotta just kind of roll with it. You know what I mean?
And then with Cyclops, he kept on trying to tell Jean, like, I've been possessed, and then I had this dark force telling me everything I love is like really insignificant. And she was like, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Happens to me all the time.
Take a vacation. No, yeah, Cyclops. And then like that, just like I followed him. Like I totally understand everything he was going for. That
Yeah.
um when all the X-Men kind of turned on him, I'm like, wow. Wow. If Storm would have done this, everybody would have been on board. But everybody always thinks Sky's a wet blanket, and because they don't like the fact that he got with Emma, I really feel particularly the ex-women, were all kind of having this like underhanded hostility towards Scott. They were kind of mad at
Well,
him.
what's funny is I think the Scott Emma relationship is probably like the healthier relationship for him in a way,
Right.
because he is someone who spent so much time being so concerned about being like morally right,
Right.
that he needed someone like Emma, who's a little bit more of an anti-hero, who plays in the moral grays, to kind of be like, you got to loosen up.
Right.
You got to not be so concerned about this, because you're probably better off not thinking that Professor Xavier is this god and he's this perfect moral person. Like, if you understand that people you admire can be flawed, you're
Yeah.
going to be much happier in life.
And I still say that he was the best host for the Phoenix, because he didn't go Dark Phoenix because he went crazy. He went Dark Phoenix because he was pushed. Everybody was
Sure.
like Xavier called him a failure. All his friends turned on him for really because of Emma. She was the one who told Namor where the Avengers were hiding in Wakanda.
Right.
She was the one who made all the mutants bow to her like a god, and they just like, oh, Scott must be okay with this too. Like whoa, I had nothing to do with that.
Things are always complex in relationships.
Right. It was just
a it's
reaction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Who is your favorite X-Men villain, past and present?
Ooh, X-Men villain. I mean, my first thought, like gut instinct, was just like humanity. As a metaphor,
it just gets worse and worse, and they keep upgrading.
Right. Well, and that's the funny thing too. Like, I think about the X-Men movies, and like William Stryker as a character in those movies, and he's always like the military guy in the movies, right? But I think him in the comics being just like a TV personality, feels very real to the times we're living in now, in a way that is kind of shocking, right? Because you see the way that so many of these TV personalities use their social media platforms and all these things to like spew out this vile and hate to basically brainwash people.
Right.
And like, you just know that in modern Senator, or not Senator Kelly, although Senator Kelly's okay. But modern William Stryker definitely has a Twitter feed that's like just disgusting. He definitely is like making Alex Jones InfoWars type video.
I hate you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely like making up fake news about the mutants constantly and tweeting about it. Like, that's a character that is not as flashy as, say, a Magneto or like a Cassandra Nova, who's actually a X-Men villain I like a lot. But he has a authenticity to him where you're like, this is a dude who exists in the real world, and that's kind of why he's so scary.
Oh, yeah. How about now, currently?
Yeah, I really like, and like, he's barely, still humanity. Well, the interesting thing is seeing the way they've sort of been like, how do we rehabilitate all of the mutants, right? So I don't even know if he technically counts as a villain, but after that Sabretooth miniseries, I'm so fascinated as to where his story's going to go next.
Right.
Because they ended it in such a weird, interesting spot where I'm like, what is this future for him? Like, these exiles, like, who are they? Like, what is he doing? But him to be the one who really questions like Krakoa as an entity and being like, it's not fair that you promised utopia for everyone but me. Like, you're still persecuting me and making me an outsider in spite of all this language you're throwing out.
Come on.
I know, but it's interesting.
No, I get it. No, but everybody's like, oh, Sabretooth is a political prisoner. He was told, don't kill anybody. It was one job. He killed and hurt.
He did kill some people.
No, he killed a bunch of people.
But what I think is cool about that miniseries is it feels like, not that he is redeemed, but it feels like an interesting potential start to a redemption. Right. You know what I mean? Because it ends with that vision of the future where he's literally a Professor X figure. Like, he's in a wheelchair. He's saying, to me, my exiles, right?
Right.
So it's like, what happens in the middle space there that I'm really curious. I hope they continue that story in some way, because I think it'll be an interesting journey. And then even though they've barely done anything with it, I'm fascinated by what Dr. Stasis's whole deal is.
Oh, right?
Because when they revealed he's a Mr. Sinister with a club, which suggests there's a Mr. Sinister with a heart and a Mr. Sinister with a spade. Is there two more out there? But yeah, that revelation,
I bet you. I'm telling you.
I know. That would be nuts. But that revelation, I was just like, what does this mean that there's another Mr. Sinister out there who's not a mutant based on the way he's talking? and it just wants to destroy the X-Men, versus like the Mr. Sinister who is a mutant and is quote unquote on the X-Men side. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play
I you just know they have group chats like, you know, as soon as we can copy Sinister's genetic DNA stuff, we're getting rid of him, right? Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like
we got to do something about this.
Yeah. Like I bet you
When
when they found out, everybody just looked at him like,
when he got kidnapped by the Eternals in Judgment Day, you know, some of them were low key like, "Oh, thank God, we don't gotta worry about that guy for a little bit."
but like when,
he can be their problem.
But the reveal though, I always thought like when they found out about the Club Sinister, everybody was just like, so,
you got something you want to say?
So who won the pool? Who won the pool? Just thinking like, told you.
And then he just immediately like runs. He's like, nope, I'm getting out of here.
No, seriously, Sinister has become Krieger from Archer to me. Like you just like,
totally, yeah. The mad scientist where you're just like, why do we keep this guy around? He's like, a problem.
He's insane. Okay. What was your first crossover for the X-Men?
Ooh, interesting question. The first crossover. You know what's funny? Because I wasn't getting main continuity X-Men for a while. The first time I really bought main continuity X-Men on a regular basis was with House of X and Powers of X.
Right.
Because a lot of the like, I read the like Claremont stuff and the Jason Aaron stuff and the Grant Morrison stuff and like trades from the library. Because It took me so long to finally be like, let me jump into mainline Marvel. And like the thing about X-Men is like X-Men's like a dense continuity inside of the already dense Marvel continuity. So it took me a while. So I think my actual first proper crossover where I read everything was the very recent X of Swords.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because like I said, like I'm playing a lot of catch up right now. And the new X-Men book and the Jason Aaron book, I think they were like, we've burned people out so much on X-Men crossovers that we can't do those right now. But I loved X of Swords. I thought it was just so much fun because it was like so different from what we were expecting. And all of the like competitions they had were so goofy and ridiculous.
The dance competition, like
yeah, exactly. Or the like giant puzzle that they had to do. And then it all just culminating in the massive return of the X-Men, you know, talking about like confident Cyclops and him being like, we need the X-Men, so we're bringing them back. Like that solidified him for me.
And it all started from like him getting that telepathic message from Cable saying like, Dad, I don't think we can do this. Like, help. And he's like, say less. Jean, let's get let's get the board.
Get in the minivan. We gotta help our son.
And Jean's in the back. Clip up.
Yeah, exactly. So that really is probably the first one that I've read all the way through. But one that I have a soft spot for, and it's not because I've actually read any of the actual proper X-Men parts of it, but because I like the Daredevil part of it, is Inferno.
Okay.
Have you ever read the Inferno tie-in that Innocenti wrote for Daredevil?
Yes. I read that entire thing. Like
when he rides the subway train that's possessed into hell.
Yeah.
Man, that shit rules.
Like I would say this about Claremont. Like when he did his crossovers, you knew what he was watching at the time. He was watching Ghostbusters and Freak Show.
Right. Or like when the Brood show up, you're like, this dude definitely saw aliens a couple months back and then decided to see aliens.
Like, it's like, wait a second. So
these are just aliens.
TV? Like, he just saw a trailer, like, ooh, I could make a story about that.
Hey, you know what? He had to write a lot of X-Men comics. I don't blame him for copying off of somebody's work every now and then.
I'm not getting on him. I'm not gonna get on him for that. It's just like people's like, oh, he's the best of all time. Like, well, he kind of stole the Brood from Ridley Scott.
Hey, all great artists steal, you know.
It's called flattery.
Exactly. Yeah. But you know what's funny? The thing that I loved about that Inferno crossover is in the Daredevil issue. all the inanimate objects are getting possessed by demons, and like hell is literally breaking open in the middle of New York. And the funniest part of it is like all the regular New Yorkers who are just like, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna be late to work. In the Marvel universe, crazy stuff happens so much that they're just totally unfazed by it. That they're like, oh my God, hell is opening up now. I'm gonna be like, I gotta get to work soon. What's happening?
Like, oh, where is it going? Oh, it's in 51st Street. I gotta go past her for. I gotta pick up my kid.
Yeah, exactly. But at this point, all the world-ending events in the Marvel universe are just like a minor inconvenience for the people who live in New York City.
I just wonder how much the general public in the Marvel universe know about everything. Like
Right,
what exactly
right.
do they know? Like, do
Right,
they,
yeah.
like, I mean, like, yeah, they know about the Sentinels, but do they know why? What's good? Like, I don't.
Right.
It's a
And
whole
that's
thing.
that's the interesting thing about what's going on in Judgment Day right now is you can, talking about social media and skewing people's minds, but people's perception of the idea of the mutant resurrection, and then Druig exploiting that perception to be like, look, we got you. Don't worry about it. We are going to put giant monsters on the coast of America, but we'll get rid of those mutants for you. It's all good. And
And
seeing people
that was
reacting to
so
that.
weird. Just like how they were
But
cheering. It's like,
people would do that. I think certain people would totally. I mean, you see that now. Like it's the idea of you find the group of people who you can target and say, I'll get rid of these people for you, and people will praise you regardless of what horrible things you're then going to turn around and do to make that happen. It's some messed up thing about human psychology.
but just the whole thing of like, it's like Mutant Forever's just not for me. I'm like, wow, you guys are petty. Like, y'all didn't say anything when Xavier got shot, or when the time school got blown up, or when Genosha got destroyed, or when
Right.
when all the
It's
mutants
like, let the X-Men
powers.
have this. They've been through enough.
But then it was like, oh, it's not fair. Life isn't fair. It wasn't fair that 16 million mutants died in less than 20 minutes. They died in less time than a whole Seinfeld episode. 22 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's weird.
Hey, like I said, the best villain's humanity.
What is your favorite era of the X-Men? One that
Ooh,
just
interesting
like
question.
I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think the funny thing about when you read superhero comics is I think you're always going to be very drawn to the era you grew up around.
Right.
And that's the kind of like that's the kind of toxic thing about nostalgia, I think, is that people
Yeah.
get older and they're like, these things aren't as good as when I was young. And it's like, no, it's just you just miss when you were young. Is what it really is. It's not that it's not as good, it's just you miss being a child again when life was simple. But I definitely find that I'm enjoying this era a lot. Like I don't know if I could definitely say it's my favorite, but I think because I've become so invested in it and like I'm really buying it on a regular basis. I love the writers, I love the stories. Like I truly love this Krakoa era so much. But I also am very partial to the Morrison era too. I love Grant Morrison as a writer. I think they're fantastic, and that was really one of my first major peeks into the world of the X-Men. That wasn't the Ultimate Universe, like 616 proper. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that to me defines a lot of those characters. So I'm always going to be very partial to that. But I also am so glad I got to jump in on this Krakoa era the way I did, which is like, I have a close friend who I've known for years, and for a long time he was really the only other person who was as into comics as I was. He's not a fan of the Krakoa era because to him it's such a radical departure. But because, yeah, I know it's crazy, but there's people out there like I kind of get that. Like it is a very big change, but for me, because I wasn't as like super invested into what came before, this change is almost like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity for me to jump in the same way Ultimate X-Men was. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
No, see, I've been reading X-Men since like the early 90s, since like
Right.
since that Mutant Genesis. And
Yes.
so like seeing this, looking at this Krakoa era, I'm like, yeah, yes, let's go. I love it. Because we say, oh, the mutants are separating themselves. Like, yeah, but they did that with Utopia too.
Right,
like
right,
what? Nobody had an issue with that. They
right,
relocated the school into limbo for a time. Not a big fan.
right, right. Well,
But
and there's the escalation aspect of it, but I also think that like what I think people have found so enjoyable about it is that even though they have problems and conflicts, for the first time it feels kind of like the mutants won. You know what I mean? Like even with Utopia, even with all those other ones, it was a small group of them. But
right,
because it's all of them or a majority of them,
right,
it feels like a win for them for the first time in their entire history.
right. Okay, I like it. I like it. I like that answer. All right. Who is your favorite X-Men writer, past, currently, and in the past?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think I think my answer might have been different before I read X-Men Red #5 this past week.
Oh
But
yeah,
after reading X-Men Red #5 this past week, I'm like, it's probably Al Ewing.
Al Ewing.
Because oh my
He has my
god, like
heart.
he has Magneto's heart too.
Right. Hey, it's there.
I was like, wait, I don't understand what he's doing, but I also know it's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that he's just
He's that
running, I'm
guy.
like,
He's that
he
guy.
is. He is just fueled by hate right now and anger and vengeance. And the Eternals messed up real bad.
Oh,
And he
oh,
was
oh,
gonna
oh
ruin
yeah.
their
I'll
lives.
just he's like, it's like he got that first punch. He's like, okay, all right. I'm gonna like just wait. Just like he wants another shot at Uranus.
Oh yeah.
He wants
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, like my whole thing with Uranus, just get like, I wanted to see Magneto come back to the council. He's like, okay, get me Monarch, get me Franklin Richards, get me Stink. Like, I want heavy hitters. Get Forge
Yeah.
to get that thing.
We're barely into this event. Like only one issue of the main miniseries has come out, and just that moment alone, I'm like, I don't know where this is about to go from here, but man, it's gonna be crazy.
And the Avengers do nothing as usual.
I cannot tell you, as someone who is an Avengers fan, I cannot tell you how much it frustrates me that they just like are constantly dropping the ball whenever the X-Men are involved. I'm like,
they've always done so.
Someone needs to like sit them down and be like, we need to have a conversation about what it means to be an ally. We need to have a conversation about like what it means to like understand the mutant struggle, because you guys are falling down on the job constantly.
Like when Genosha was being destroyed. Oh wow, wait, what's going on? Who SpongeBob's on? Like it's
like,
a
it's
marathon. Hulk, what's your favorite show?
You know what's funny though? Like even though the first issue for them was embarrassing, I'm also just like, at least thank God they're not going to be fighting the X-Men. Like they definitely messed up early on, but at least I know they're going to be helpful later on. I hope. We'll see. But it was just like, I can't believe you guys messed this up again. Come on, guys, get it together. You're like, the world's mightiest heroes.
The Avengers to me have always like, just, this is like a theory I kind of developed back during like around New X-Men, and just kind of developed. The Avengers are kind of like a country club. Like, here we out. There are a bunch of mutants. There are a bunch of mutants. No, there are a bunch of like, they say they want to help people, but they only have like, they have their affirmative action hires.
Oh no.
Beef, Firestar, Wolverine, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, all mutants who don't really like the fact that they're mutants. And like, hey,
there's some complicated stuff going on there, yeah.
And then if anybody gets any kind of bigger shine than them, that's when they have an issue. That's when Captain America is like, oh, we need Hope Summers. Who are you? And then anytime it's like, and then like we saw with the gala when Firestar got joined the X-Men, the first thing Tony Stark did, like, hey, this is great. Let us know if anything happens. What the hell?
Yeah. I need you to snitch. I need you to be our snitch. I'm like, Tony, shut the fuck up.
It's like, shut. It's like, see, this is is why nobody likes you, Tony.
Right. And it's especially frustrating too after Steve had that great moment with Emma where he's like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta trust people that you wouldn't expect to be on your side. And that's great. Then Tony's like, by the way, I need you to be our inside man. I need you to tell us all their secret things. But like, Tony.
And then with Tony, like that whole speech you said about resurrection, and Jet, like I understand where he's coming from, but it seems like he's kind of hating. Like, because they did something that he couldn't do.
No, it's 100% that.
It's like, it's either everybody's gonna get it, or eventually no one's gonna get it because
right.
like it's gonna be in Krakoa. Like, you sound like a real hater, dude. Like just say that you work with Orcus. Just say like you've been up there.
Frustrating. Yeah, and it's so frustrating because I think writers have a tendency to like they always want to make the X-Men the underdogs, which I understand that, and I think that's part of why people love the X-Men is because they are like they're a metaphor for persecuted groups, whatever that. Right. But because of that, they always like instinctively make the Avengers into like the what's the word I'm looking for?
Into
the cops,
complex.
basically. Yeah. They're just like I'm like Captain America should always be on the side of the oppressed. Captain America should always be helping the mutants bare minimum. And they can't even get that part right. I'm like, guys, oh my god.
Yeah. Remember after House of M? That's when they showed up, and like Carol Danvers was like, you're my friends. Like, you have never been a friend to Carol. Like, you helped out one time because you had nothing else going on. You were the token human in mutants, and then as soon as you got that Avengers call up, hey, we need your help with this Project Wide Awake and these Sentinels. New phone, who this?
It is crazy. It is so crazy. But yeah, I'm hopeful that they'll finally show up for the mutants as Judgment Day goes on, but we'll see.
I'm not holding my breath. Just every time they're just like, if they don't do anything, I'll be like, at least they're consistent.
Yeah, I guess.
I would love to have seen, like, with the Avengers, I would love to see them have discussions about Krakoa. Like,
sure,
find out that maybe some of the Avengers don't like Krakoa. They think it's I don't know. This is just me. I would totally be okay if we find out there are a couple of anti-mutant Avengers. Like, find out that Hawkeye has an issue with them. Like, great. This means all of them are like, find out Captain America. Like, Captain America is like, he's always on the fence. He doesn't want to pick a side. He's like, I know this is bad. I know this is bad, but I can't do anything yet.
People are very afraid, and it's frustrating because I think the best Captain America stories are the ones where he's openly like, screw authority. Like, we need to help people. But people are always afraid to like push him in that direction for whatever reason, which I'll never understand. Because like, but that's why people like Captain America. Right. Because he's what we wish America was, not what it actually is. And when people write him as what it actually is, we're like, come on, we know he's better than this.
Like, also Wakanda. I just look at Wakanda like, I feel like they're low-key hating on Krakoa too.
Well, there was an interesting, do you read the current Black Panther comic?
Yeah, what they're doing right now.
There's that interesting little subplot with Gentle.
Yeah,
right? Where he was like pretending to be
Krakoa,
anti-Wakanda, but he was actually like a mole. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. But that's such an interesting idea of someone, because we haven't really seen that yet in the Krakoa age, where someone's like, I have a deeper loyalty to something that's outside of the mutants.
Right.
Like, he's like, my loyalty to Wakanda is greater than my loyalty to the X-Men and the mutants. I was like, that's actually really interesting. I
just want somebody to point out, like, Wakanda doesn't even acknowledge you because you're ass. Because you're biracial.
Well, look, I'm not saying it's a perfect place.
No, but I like how, but like, as soon as like, because with Black Panther, you knew this was coming because like, he first joined the Avengers just to spy on them.
Yeah. The man likes to know everything. He likes to have his contingency plans.
And then with the whole thing with Storm, it just like, this is why I never wanted to see Storm and Black Panther together ever again, because like, he uses his relationship with her in order to get information. I'm like, wow,
Right.
you are playing her. And you
They're better as
supposedly love her
messy
so
exes.
much,
Yeah.
but you guys didn't have any kind of relationship before 2006. So no one's going to talk about that. No, okay, all right.
You know what? You know what's funny? I was saying this to someone because somebody on TikTok said some nonsense about like Black Panther just being a Batman ripoff, and I was like, that's not true because the reason we have these like the reason these like character with no superpowers and just tech solos the characters with powers. The reason we even have that is because in Black Panther's first appearance, he beats the whole Fantastic Four
by himself.
He's the inventor. Yeah, he's the inventor of that. Like Batman is that way now because Black Panther was like that in the 60s. You know what I mean? He was doing the whole Tower of Babel thing long before Batman ever did. So to me, I'm like, he's the originator of that.
Batman's trying to be like Black Panther.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
What X-Men era has disappointed you, or what era, like just like you're like, wow, this could have been better?
The thing about me when I read comics, there are some comic book fans who are like, they'll buy every issue of Spider-Man no matter how much they hate it. And I have never followed that philosophy. I'm usually like, if I'm not liking a book, I'm just going to drop it and move on with my life. You know what I mean? So I would have a hard time pinpointing something. I think like we were saying, like towards the end of the Ultimate Universe, there was a lot that kind of fell off.
Right.
So it was kind of sad to see, the bloom fall off the rose on Ultimate X-Men. I think that was probably like the big one for me where I was sort of disappointed to say, oh, you know what? This is no longer the thing that I loved it to be or wanted it to be. Right. But I think I would have a hard time pinpointing something that I was like, oh, this truly disappointed me. Because again, I read a lot of it after the fact and after people were like, this is great, so read this. I'm like, okay, I know this will be good. I know this will be of quality, so I'll check it out and pick it up. But I think my advice to all comic book fans is if you don't like something, just don't read it. You'll be so much happier. Let it go. Like, there will always be Spider-Man comics,
right? Like
they'll come back eventually.
Like Ultimatum, like I understand why people didn't like it, but like it's totally understandable. Like just Magneto just going crazy, just going complete ape shit.
Yeah, I don't even think I read Ultimatum. I think I like found out about it after the fact, but I mostly found out about like people being like, oh, the Blob literally eats the Wasp. Like people just say the horrible things about it. And I was like, I don't think I ever need to read that.
That like Ultimate version, the Ultimate Universe is supposed to be like the most realistic version of the Marvel Universe. Cut out all the continuity, and then you find, oh wow, this like, of course the Blob is gonna eat people. What do you think?
But I think it's not even that the Blob ate people. I think it was just like they got to a point where, how can I put this? I think when they realized that they weren't gonna continue it, they just kind of were like, what if we just did the most cynical, horrible things imaginable and just like killed everybody? Which can be a bit of a bummer to read, you know what I mean? So
that's how we get the boys.
That's how we get the boys. That's how we get the boys.
Oh God, it's so sick. Just I have my own issues with the boys. Like I think it's great, but like when people say like, "Oh, this is how people with superpowers will really be," like, are you serious?
Yeah, I think that says more about the people who believe that than the actual comic they're reading.
like the whole thing with the boys, they have no training. There's no threat. They're just like, thrust into the spotlight. Of course, they're going to be into some diabolical stuff. The boys to me is about supervillains. If they were superheroes.
Right. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually have not read The Boys or watched the show.
It's disgusting.
I've heard, which is part of the reason I haven't checked it out.
No, the comic is just gross.
Yeah. And I hear the show kind of like sands off a lot of the edges. It makes it a little bit more enjoyable.
It's still gross.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, gross things I don't have a problem with. I think but I hit a point, especially like in this day and age where the world's just on fire all the time. I can only take so much cynicism in my fiction because I'm just like, I'm cynical enough about the world. I don't need the comics I read to help me with that.
Like, it's just, and people's like, oh, The Boys is the best comic book show ever. Wow. Okay. Okay. That's I know the Marvel shows aren't that good, but like The Boys, like
I think there's a tendency people have, and I think I don't know if this is comic book fans specifically. I think a lot of it is non-comic book fans, but I think there are some comic book fans like this. I think a lot of them have a hard time buying into the idea of altruism,
mhm,
buying into the idea of like someone just being a good person for the sake of being a good person, which is why people have a hard time with Superman, right? They're
yeah,
like, I can't wrap my brain around the idea of a person who is just genuinely good, who has all that power and just wants to help people. And I'm like,
right.
yeah, that's why he's a good character, because he is something that seems impossible, and yet he's able to do that and be that person
He's supposed to be an
anyway.
inspiration to people to do good.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
it's like, oh, Superman on a bad day would just ruin everyone. Like, oh my, he's not you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the earliest Superman comics too are so funny to look at now, because we think of Superman doing all these like grand heroic gestures, but those early comics he's like punching slumlords and
Right.
like fighting very like normal problem, like beating up like domestic abusers, because it was very much Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster being like, let's look at this world around us. We're in the middle of the Great Depression. We're dealing with a society that feels like it's crumbling. What if we had a guy who stood up for the little person, for the
Right.
person who is suffering? And it, that is what Superman is. He's that person who's always going to be on the side of righteousness. And some people just can't wrap their brain around that. And I'm like, well, I feel bad. I feel bad for you.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, okay. Okay, so here's a fun question.
Yeah.
If you went to the school, if you were able to go to the school, what
Uh-huh.
era would you have joined?
Oh, ooh, interesting. Interesting. I think I would have to pick, Krakoa does seem fun. And when Xavier's in charge, it just gets very messy. So I feel like I would have to pick the Wolverine's Jean Grey school, where
Okay.
it was just like hijinks all the time. And like that era is so fun to me, because it's just like, on the one hand, I love the kid characters in that era, because you have Quentin
Yeah.
Quire, you've got Glob Herman, you've got Brew. Brew is
Yeah.
another X-Men character I love.
Brew was great. Brew is great.
Oh,
He's
so
still in.
funny.
He's like, see, I would love to see like a graduate class of the Jean Grey school. Where are you now? I'm on X Force. I'm the king of the brood.
It's amazing. He's come so far. I'm so proud of him.
Just like
But
eat an
yeah,
egg.
that era, and then you have just like the best faculty, because you've got like Storm, you've got Wolverine, you've got Beast before he became a fascist. You've got all these great you've got all these great characters who are there in the school itself. Like, that was just such a fun, goofy era, and I'm like, yeah, that would definitely be the class, the version of school I'd want to go to.
See, with me, I would have like I would if I were to go to that Jean Grey school, I would be so defiant. I'd be like telling Kitty
You
like
and Quentin would get along.
I'd be like quit like just go Kitty like hey what like why are you with Colossus again? You're already gonna just hurt him again. Didn't you do that before? Hey Storm, that's how
Cold-blooded.
you put a hit out on the student who didn't like what you were saying. What were you even saying? Like Beast, lighten up.
Yeah, you and Quentin would get along very well.
No,
It sounds like
Wolverine. I'd be like, hey, I would just get low and say some personal stuff like, hey, Wolverine, aren't you the reason why your mom killed herself?
Jesus, cold-blooded.
Hey, it's like, oh, I'm the best at what he is. Like, yeah, but you can't get a good mom. Just me.
Harsh.
Just I would like to have gone to Krakoa. Krakoa would be awesome because
I mean, you're basically on a paradise island. That's amazing.
Like, you're just hanging, like you're hanging out the Green Lagoon. You're swapping stories with Magneto. Like, hey, like man, I remember that one time where you just wiped out. You sent an EMP across the entire world because you were mad. What was that about?
Yeah, I can't deny that would be a good time as well.
Yeah, and also, anytime Sinister came in, somebody would like, calm down. Like, he's right over there. Like, he has some sort of clone factory. You know this, and he's still here. It's fun. It's fun to do. What would be your mutant powers?
Oh man, what would be my mutant powers? Jeez, that's such a tough question, because I think the thing I've grown fascinated by as I read more and more X-Men is finding the characters who have the like powers that don't seem useful but like have interesting utility purposes.
Right.
Like I think Doug Ramsey's power is so great. Like the ability to just know any language.
Right.
That's incredible. I don't need Duolingo. I can just know it. That's incredible. That's so useful to have. Or even like Prodigy, just being able to like pick up the skills of somebody who's near me. You know, like I want to become a really good chef, so I'm going to hang out with a chef for a little bit.
Like,
I can make an amazing meal. Exactly. So I there's the obvious ones where I'm like, oh, I want Wolverine claws. Healing factor would be nice. I would love a healing factor.
But those claws hurt. Like every time you take out, they hurt. Like,
right.
We're like,
but that's what makes me edgy. I'm like, it hurts every time.
He's like, what are you, a masochist?
Yeah. So I think something like that, like one of those powers where it's like not something that is necessarily like combat focused, but something that would be so useful in day-to-day life. Especially because I'm a high school teacher, I'm an English teacher, and I feel like having like a very language-based power would be choice. That would be so useful. I'd love that.
I feel you on that one.
What about you? What would you pick for yours?
Powers, teleportation. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm a procrastinator, so I would just want to like get out of bed, just create a portal. So Manifold for me would be amazing. Manifold.
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay. If there was anything that you could change about the X-Men, what would it be?
Ooh. Anything I could change about the X-Men? Ooh, that's a really tough question.
I'm asking. Hey. 1407. We asked.
These are the hard hitting questions. Yeah. You know what it would be, and I don't know if this is cheating, because I think I would be changing a thing about X-Men fandom, and not X-Men.
Oh, lay it on me.
Which would be I don't, and this is actually a comic book fandom problem in general. There's so many like fans out there who like are just like kind of gross people, like whether it's misogynist or like homophobic, and I'm like, how did you miss the entire point of X-Men? Like the entire point of X-Men is like standing up for people who are oppressed, and yet you're like hurting people in that way. It's so strange. So I guess it would probably be that, like for people to wake up and understand the message of the X-Men a little bit better. You know what I mean? For people to like get the idea that it's about whatever group of people that might be. And sometimes it's very literal, like in the case of Magneto. Like Magneto's literally a Holocaust survivor. You know, they've made that text for that particular character.
But they still say he's a bad father. Like
he's got some trauma. He's got some trauma.
Like he didn't know about his children until they were adults. He had nothing to do with that.
He's got some issues. He's a complex guy.
Yeah, he has issues, total issues.
Yeah. But I think that is like the thing that I wish people would take away from, or the thing I guess I don't know, change is maybe not the right word, but like I guess I would wish people could better understand the story itself. Because my feeling with superhero comics is always like, there are always going to be bad stories out there, right? And at the end of the day, like I've learned that I can't change those stories. All I can do is find the stories I like, or hope it gets retconned at some point in the future, and just kind of roll with it from there, you know? Because there's just so much out there. I would rather find the things I enjoy and latch onto that than just dwell on, man, do I hate this one thing. Which, speaking as someone who grew up with DC, that's a lesson I've had to learn with a lot of DC stuff over my life. And I'm now just like, you know what? I'm going to find the DC stuff I like and really latch onto that and enjoy that. You know?
It's, yeah. But if I could change it, it'd probably be that whole the whole term retroactive continuity, because anytime they change, like it is like, oh, they retconned. Like no, they just gave you more. Like, okay, every time we see a story, we see it from one perspective. Like,
Right.
who's to say that Sinister didn't have another plan under another plan? Like, these are super villains. They're very smart. They're
Right. Right.
so like he's like, oh, Sinister, but Sinister actually had Madeline Pryor to do this, this, and this. Like, that's a retcon. No, no, it's not. You just found out more of the plan. You just found out the
Right.
full plan. Like
Right. Right.
the whole thing with
And the sorry, go ahead.
the whole thing with Moira and Moira going to like the whole idea of
Sure.
Koa was supposed to be like it was part of a long-term plan. Like, no,
Mhm.
no, that was part of that was the entire thing
Or even just like her being a mutant at all. You know what I mean? Like,
but you kind of like seeing how she is back in the older books and seeing how she is, like, yeah, it totally makes sense. Totally makes sense for her.
She was the only human who died of the legacy virus, and now it's like, no, she died of it because she was also a mutant.
Okay,
right?
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for remembering she had the legacy virus, because with her powers, I would love to have seen what the legacy virus would have done to her powers.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
because like I've been kind of like campaigning for a more series where we get the X-Men from her perspective
Right.
the entire time. Like,
weren't we supposed to get that?
I
I feel
think
like I
that was
remember reading
Inferno.
that was like something they had cooking, and I think COVID and like all the comics getting delayed kind of like
COVID
screwed up their
killed.
plan to launch
COVID
that.
hurt all of us.
It did. I mean, but yeah, okay. You know what? I changed my answer. If I could change one thing, it would be we got that Moira X miniseries, because I agree with you. I would have also loved to see
Because her whole time with Excalibur, like,
right.
like even Deadly, I would like to see her get blamed for Deadly Genesis as well. We find out, oh no, she's the one who really pushed for that. She wanted to see that happen. Like, Xavier is
Not
like,
to mention,
like,
Not to mention some of those lifetimes we see very briefly in
yeah.
Hotspots are just so crazy. I'm like, I need to know more of this story. I need to see the story where she's just an assassin hunting down the entire Trask family.
Right.
Like, that's so nuts.
Like, who was she? Who was her crew? What did she do?
Yeah.
Did she have people? Like, I can totally see her with Forge. I can totally see her having a relationship with Forge, and then it just and then it kind of fizzled out because she found out how to duplicate her powers, and she didn't like that.
Or even just like her knowledge of, the idea of having a power where you're like reliving your entire life over and over, but you have that knowledge is like existentially kind of terrifying. I think people are like, oh, I would love to do everything over knowing what I know now. And it's like, to a degree, yes, but also I think there's something about that like would be so frustrating, because you would see the patterns that everyone else has to play around you. You have changed. Nobody else around you has changed.
It's Groundhog Day.
Exactly. And the whole thing in Groundhog Day is he's just so frustrated by the fact that there are some things he can't fix and change, which would drive a person nuts.
Like, a lot of people, like, nobody really put that. It's like, oh, this is an amazing power. Like, wait a second, I saw this movie. This is Groundhog Day. and she lost her mind after what 10 lives. Bill Murray had 374.
Well, I imagine doing it 374 times in one day would be like living your whole life 10 times. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like a equivalent exchange sort of thing. But yeah, even still, like, because you know all the things that these people are going to do, and you can try and change them as much as you can, but at the end of the day, like, they don't have that same forethought and knowledge that you have, so they're still going to follow their patterns, and that's got to be incredibly frustrating.
Except for that second life, when she got on that plane, it just blew up. She didn't see that one coming.
She took a mulligan on that one, yeah.
I think Moira is the best villain. Like, she's now my all-time favorite villain, because she's methodical, she's intelligent, she knows all the secrets, and like she's playing like she has hurt feelings. Like, oh, they betrayed me. No, they didn't betray you. They just found out that you wanted to kill everybody.
Well, it goes back to what we were saying about Dr. Doom. Pettiness is a very compelling motivation in a villain.
I just like, I look at Moira Taggart the way the Tiger King looks at Carol Baskins. It's just like, you're just mean. You're just, especially after she like used Banshee like Leatherface
Yeah.
or like Leatherface.
That was nuts.
Like, hasn't he
I
suffered
was worried
enough?
she was gonna do that to MJ for the Hellfire Gala. That's really what it felt like was gonna happen.
Yeah, I just like, you know what? I was with you, and then the entire time, like, you guys don't listen to me. Where were you during X Swords, during anything? You were just in,
Right.
you were just in your little black tumor.
Which is the other reason why I wish we had gotten that Moira X series, is like I feel like that probably would have filled in some of those gaps as to like why was she so out of the picture for so much of the story leading up to Inferno. I feel like we probably would have gotten like an idea of what she was up to and what she was doing. I think that would probably be my one thing I could change. In addition to like making people nicer.
But also, if also kind of Mystique's number 2, because she's just terrible. She's like
right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like the entire
I disagree.
time.
I love everything going on with Mystique right now.
With her, she was like, "Oh, I want my wife back." Okay, complete a mission. She didn't do that. She went
no. Oh no. But they were using that as like bait, as like a carrot in front of her. Because she would do the things and then get resurrected, and then they kind of like move the goalposts. You know what I mean? Because then they're like, "Ooh, but did you complete the mission?" She's like, "I literally got blown up." Because they had no intention of ever doing it. Like that's why it's messed
eventually up. I mean, like, but she blames Charles and Magneto, and he was like, "You know, we're gonna have to tell everybody the truth." They said that at the end of Hoxpox, like, we have to tell them the truth because times are different. We are different. We gotta
sure.
Like, we'll keep this going for now, but we gotta tell everybody everything eventually. And Moira's like,
and I think, but then I think from a moral perspective, I think that's also what makes this whole thing compelling, right? Because you are looking at this scenario where these two guys who have, from our perspective as readers, spent so much of their lives fighting and sacrificing, they finally have something they're holding on to, and they're now stuck in this position where they're like, we have to decide what are the moral sacrifices we're willing to make. Like you're saying, like, we want to be better, we want to tell everyone, but at the same time, like, we have this person who's telling us that it will cause the death of everything. So what do we choose to do in that moment? And I think for Mystique, like, she just hit a point where she's like, taking too long. I need my wife back.
But like, it's like, I have sacrificed everything. I have so much for being kind. Like, I would love to somebody say, somebody come at, like, okay, remember the time where you stabbed Rogue? The time that you shot Nightcrawler? The other time you shot Rogue? The other time you shot Nightcrawler?
Hey, Krakoa promised amnesty. It's a clean slate.
Remember that one time you gave Iceman a mutant STD?
Look, clean slate. Clean slate. Krakoa's a clean slate. I don't know what to say.
Remember that other time where you try to make your own Krakoa by buying Madripoor, but then you kidnap Dazzler?
I will admit that I'm very biased because I am very much team Mystique and Destiny. They are my OTP. I love those two together because they're technically Sherlock Holmes and Irene Adler. So I always
you kept Dazzler in a chemically induced coma, and then extracted her spinal fluid to sell as a drug.
Look, they let Mr. Sinister on the island, okay? We're going to compare notes on how bad everybody...
Sinister has a purpose, okay? He has all the DNA. As soon as they get all the mutants back, he's out.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm Team Mystique and Destiny all the way, man.
No, but also,
they're the ride or dies for me.
If Destiny hadn't come back, like, the mutants would have won all the way. Because like we seen at the end of Inferno, Omega Sentinel, her timeline, they won. All the mutants won. They won, and she came back to stop it. And because they didn't have Destiny. So, like, if Destiny hadn't came into play, Moira would eventually been found out anyway.
But I think we can't say that for sure, because now that Moira's had her power erased, I feel like that makes all of the timeline stuff totally in question. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of, and now not only that, now that we have Moira clones hanging around, I feel like there's a lot of weird possible future stuff we
that is
still like
rough.
can't even comprehend yet. You know what I mean?
And you just see Dr. Nemesis like, like I'm right here, right? Like I could do everything he can do. Just
He's like, I'm growing mushrooms on my head. Give me something to do.
Like I am high all the time. Yeah, like I understand. I love this. Like, but I like Destiny coming back. It makes her more interesting. Just like
yes,
because like the way her powers work, the way she sees everything. But at the same time, like she's kind of like a GPS that's constantly readjusting. Go this way. Go that way. Make a U-turn.
I feel like for storytelling purposes, whenever you have a characters like precog characters, you kind of have to cheat that way. You know what I mean? Because then you get to a point where it's like, well, if you have a character who knows the future at all times, like why would they ever lose? Like, well, why is anything a challenge for them? So you have to have these sort of like little narrative tricks and cheats to make a story happen, you know?
Yeah, but Gillian had a really good way of explaining her powers though. You see that like it's like a big force, and I like also I'm blind, so I don't know where like I just see kind of like it's like when you're in the dark and you're like, wait a sec, is that a couch? That's not a couch.
Like you can see the big shapes of things, and you have to kind of make predictions from there.
And then you find out that Mystique has no like. She's not prevalent in any timeline.
I know. Heart is so sad.
It's kind of funny.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of funny.
You have no romanticism in you, sir.
No, I have romanticism. I like the fact that Scott and Jean they become the working couple that I remember growing up. Because Scott and Jean, they were like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Like they were good, they were good separately, but they were better together.
Sure.
And also, Jean is the best second wife ever. She accepted all his kids, no issues. She took in baby Nate like it was her own. Technically, it was, but like they complete it. But
she's not the stepmom. She's the mom who stepped up.
Yeah. Yes. Like, but that was another reason why I didn't want Madeline there, because like what she wants at the end of the day. She wants her family back. She wants Scott back. She wants Cable. She wants Jean's spot.
I'm very curious to see what's gonna happen with that character. Because the current New Mutant stuff is interesting, and then we've got Dark Web coming out later this year. I'm like, this is crazy.
Please don't let her find out about the summer house. Don't let her find out.
That's why they put it on the moon. They were like, we gotta keep this far away.
She'd be like, you did all like she'll be outside in a spacesuit looking in the window like it should have been me.
It's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good.
She would look at Rachel like, who was that?
Yeah, that's gonna be very interesting.
It's fun. Like the X-Men are fun. Like I love Destiny and Mystique. They're great. But it's just like them together is like, okay, Mystique, you showing that you love Destiny is so beautiful. It's so great, but you still threw your son off of a waterfall.
Look, Krakoa's a clean slate. That's all I can say.
My thing with Nightcrawler is like, shouldn't he be a little bit angry about that? Like,
you know what I actually would love to see. They did that one issue of X-Men where it was like Gambit meeting Destiny because it's like his mother-in-law.
Yeah, that was funny. That was great.
I would love to see more like kind of like awkward family reconciliations with the like Mystique, Destiny, Nightcrawler, Rogue family unit. See them try to like build a relationship again and try to forgive each other and figure it out. I think
Thanksgiving issue.
Perfect. Like Thanksgiving at the Mystique household.
like night. All right, I'll give you the entire beginning. Nightcrawler goes to Gambit and Rogue, says, "Hey, it's Thanksgiving. Let's do something with the family." And then they go to Mystique's house, and Mystique's kind of drunk, and she's like, "No, I don't want this. I don't want this at all." And then you bring in Nocturne, Nightcrawler's daughter with the Scarlet Witch, which would bring in Magneto, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and we just get the most. It would be some August Osage County stuff. They did like Mystique and Destiny are just they're kind of drunk, but they're being mean the entire time. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like,
I was not expecting there to be an
meet
August Osage County reference today, but my respect for you would shut up even further.
I appreciate it. No, like I love Nocturne. I would love to bring her back. Like,
yeah.
Also,
that would be great.
Also, I still think she would have stopped House of M from happening. It's like,
yeah.
Hey, TJ, we need you over here. Mom, who are you? I'm your daughter.
Where is she even at right now?
Like, she is in. Actually, I don't know. I think she's still with the Exiles. Right? Like, she's like.
Okay.
But
she wasn't in that most recent Exiles book.
No.
Yeah.
But I would love just to bring her back. She was so much fun.
That'd be interesting.
And like, can you imagine Magneto with a granddaughter? Like, she'd be like, Grandpa, TJ. And you just see Morta mad. Like,
you know what's funny? Like, because WandaVision was so popular, it is so strange to me that they haven't tried to do a book like you're describing. That's like the weird dynamics of like Wanda, Vision, Billy, Tommy, and now Viv Vision, like being like a weird sitcom family trying to figure it out, and have Magneto as the grandpa. Like, there's so much good sitcom family dynamics you could do, and it's crazy to me they haven't tried to do that yet.
I just want somebody to bring up just somebody like Mystique or Destiny, like, Billy and Tommy aren't really real. What?
just descends into chaos.
Hey, they're not. They are real. They're figments of your imagination. Okay. Okay. Like, how are you gonna how their father gonna be Vision and he's a robot, but you have two flesh and blood kids who aren't mixed? Make it make sense.
Oh my goodness.
Like, TJ, I understand. TJ, I understand. Like, she is mixed. They go. I'm sorry. Like, I thought about the whole thing with Wanda and all that. Just it's
a mess.
But you're right though. With Gambit and Destiny, that was great because
that was a great issue. Yeah,
like he said, like, the difference with we both love Rogue, but the difference between your love and my love doesn't have strings attached. And she was like,
"Hey, he was right to call her out on that." Yeah,
and she was like, hey.
The art in that issue was so good because it's so I can't imagine what it's like to have to draw Destiny because she can't express anything on the face. But that pose was so perfect. That was one of my favorite drawings.
I love it. It's great because it's like she can't say nothing. And I don't understand why Nightcrawler wants a relationship with Mystique. His
father, it'd be a good dynamic to explore. Yeah,
his father is it's like having, which one would you rather have, like AIDS or cancer? And like with Mystique and Azazel, and like Azazel is the better parent by a little bit because he saved the boy and gave him and put him into a really good family. Like, just by a little bit. He still sucks. It's
a low bar.
That was like his two redeeming qualities. Mystique, like, if you aren't Rogue, she doesn't care. Like,
well, all the more reason to do that story. I think that's got a lot of good potential there.
It's great. It's a bunch of like I think the current current X writers, if they were to just go back into continuity a little bit, there's stuff.
Yeah. It's hard because I think Krakoa has given them such an open door to do so many new things. That it's like, I think there is the urge to like push forward and try new things is really strong. Yeah. And kind of going back to my friend earlier, I think that was something that bothered him, was like, feels like there's a lack of acknowledgement of history, which again, like, doesn't bother me because
I
haven't read a lot of history. So, I have like little pockets here and there. So to me, a lot of this is still new. But I think the forward momentum is so strong right now. It's hard for them to hit the brakes and go back to older stories, even though I think there's a lot of richness there in this new dynamic.
Like the whole thing, like, all right, with Knights of X, with Rachel and Betsy getting together, like they say, like, oh, these two finally got together. Like, wait a second, they were never on the same team together. Now, if you were to say they started an attraction together, now I'd be like, okay, I can get behind that.
Well, I think I remember Teeny Howard kind of like planting seeds in a lot of the early stories where you can see was there. Because the problem was just simply like, you know, I mean, Chris Claremont had always intended Rachel to be gay, but they wouldn't let him do it. I can't remember who it was. I feel like it was probably Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter had a lot of not great.
No. A lot of people give Jim Shooter crap, but he's the one who reined in a lot of Chris Claremont's crazy ideas. He wanted to make Kitty Pryde the daughter of Storr and Turner black.
Oh yeah, I was hearing about that. Yeah. Like that is a bad idea. But not letting him make a character gay is not okay. Like there's a push and pull there. Like definitely some things where it's like Chris Claremont can't do that. But
or the whole thing
I think
or the whole thing with Mystique and Destiny saying like, oh, they're originally supposed to be Nightcrawler's parents. I really like I unfolded.
Yeah, I don't think the world's ready for that. That's intense.
No. I was like, wait a second. That wouldn't make any sense. Because one, like Mystique gave birth to Nightcrawler. She was the one who gave birth. So unless like Destiny has a penis,
I think it would have been the other way around. I think Mystique would have taken on a male form, and Destiny would have been the one having the baby.
Okay, all right. I can get by.
Yeah.
Okay, so where would teleportation power come from? Where would two fingers come from? Where
I mean, well, it's one of those weird things where like, where do any of these mutant powers come from though? Like Beast being the way he is, and so many of the like physical traits, it's like, especially if they're born of human parents, it's like you can't nitpick that too much.
Yes, you can. Fully active mutant parents, yes, you can, because you look at the Summers family. Most of them have telepathic telekinesis, but they always have that.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Because they're two mutants, like it's usually some kind of hybrid of.
Yeah, it's kind of like eye color. Like, oh, you got your father's eyes, but you
right.
your mother's hair or something, and like just like like.
But that also wasn't a concept I feel like Claremont was thinking about in the early days of X-Men. You know what I mean? I feel like that's something that has now been kind of accepted later on, where we're like, okay, if you have two mutant parents, you're gonna get some kind of Gregor Mendel Pascal Square version of the.
Granted, Graydon Creed is an exception. The whole thing.
Who's an exception?
Graydon Creed, the human son of Sabretooth and Mystique.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, exception. It's not genetics is not it's not an infallible science. Some things happen. I get it. I'm all with that. But also with Destiny and Mystique, I would love to see how how Destiny would interact with Azazel. She like, so you're the baby daddy. Just like, you're her great love.
It would be, like you said, a very awkward Thanksgiving.
It would be the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
And Nightcrawler's just like, he's like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Oh man, crazy.
Great times.
Yeah. Did you have a final question for me? Sorry, I can hear I got a text about needing to help out with my son.
Yeah. No, we're wrapping up.
Okay, cool.
Just are you gonna get your son into X-Men? Like, how would you
yeah.
Like,
we've been of course we've been watching the X-Men cartoon. Usually while we're feeding, I'll like throw it on and he'll watch with me. And I read him like little golden books, like we do very Caterpillar, the classics, but I've also been reading like the Lee Kirby X-Men the Lee Kirby Fantastic Four with him. Nice. So I'm like dipping him into comic books in different ways.
Dip.
And it's funny because he's 6 months old. So it's one of those things where like if something just has like bright, vibrant colors, he's usually like drawn into it. So he's not understanding a word of it, but I'm hopeful that as he gets older, he'll appreciate it.
Okay, what is your favorite X-Men animated series season?
Ooh, oh boy. That's a tough question. That the one season that they did of Wolverine the X-Men, I feel like is a pretty perfect season of TV. Like they
Mhm.
really nailed that in terms of the long form storytelling and the characterizations. But I also really liked, I can't remember which season specifically it is. It might have been like the last or the second to last season of X-Men Evolution.
Uh-huh.
I think it's which season was the Apocalypse story? Was it the last
That
season?
was like the last. That was like
I think
last.
it's the last
Yeah,
season. Yeah, yeah. That season ruled. That season was so great because like it felt like they were really evolving, pun intended, from
yeah,
being like this sort of school centric one to being like the full blown X-Men. You know what I
right.
mean? Not that I didn't enjoy the school centric stuff, but it felt like the show was growing and expanding
Yeah,
in a really
wanted
cool,
one more
interesting way.
season though. One more season.
Oh, I know. That last episode where you get all the teases of like all the stories they probably would have done is just heartbreaking because you're like, oh, I want to see these. These look so cool.
For me, the original one, season 3, when they brought in the Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix saga, and
Sure.
then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they did it the best. Like,
Yeah.
like also, all right, I'm gonna say that that's nostalgia for me because I remember
No, because I think if you're not going to space and like fighting aliens, it's not the Dark Phoenix saga. You got
exactly.
to go to space. There's got to be the Shi'ar Empire. You got to go big with it. It can't just be Gene's mad on Earth about stuff. It's got to be huge, Otherwise, it just doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah, but check this out. Like, when they first premiered it, it was during the first week of school, and I was like in 5th grade. So every day, like, there's like for 5 straight days, we're gonna get the entire Phoenix saga. I'm like, X-Men every day. I
Amazing.
zoomed home to watch it, and I'm like me and my uncles were watching, like, oh my god! And this is the first time I ever knew about the Phoenix. Right,
Right, right.
I was a '90s kid, so like we watched it, and it was like, and they said hell on a cartoon. Never heard that before. I was a kid. I was a kid in the '90s. Say any cursing in the car.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
unheard of.
unheard
Unheard
of.
of. I can't wait
Okay.
to rewatch that part. That's gonna be
All
great.
right. Thank you for coming in, Brian. I really
Thank
appreciate
you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
This was really
we
fun.
gotta do this again. We could just like
I would love that. Yeah, yeah.
what's gonna happen at the end of Judgment Day. We gotta do this again.
Totally, totally. All right.
So where can they find you again on TikTok?
Best place to find me is my handle is CaptainComicRecs. That's RECS, like recommendations.
Right.
I'm posting on there pretty much every day. I post just about like comics I'm reading, fun facts. I do interviews and things like that with creators. I do TikTok live, so you can catch clips of those and things like that. And then you can also check those out on YouTube. I don't do like YouTube videos. I
Yeah.
just post the interviews I do from
Right.
TikTok
Right.
live.
Hey,
So
this is the best way to
if you
do
like
it.
anything,
Best way to
yeah, exactly, exactly. So if you watch any of the clips and you like them, you can check out YouTube, same name, Captain Comic Rex.
Cocoa forever. Cocoa
Cocoa
forever.
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 Hell yeah.
This is 1407 Grey Mountain Lane. Signing out.